Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are using the Johnson edition. We are now at poem 236. If he dissolve, then there is nothing more. Now, some have argued that this is one of those examples of Emily's weaker poems. We're going to look at this poem, though, as I think a very interesting little attempt at trying to explain the fear of loss, if not the actual loss itself. It's a dark poem, but it's not exactly clear who the poem is about. Some have read it as another Sam Bowles poem, and in some ways we're back to poem 217 and 186. Do you guys remember when we did 186? What shall I do? It whimpers so, this little hound within the heart, all day and night with bark and start, and yet it will not go. Would you untie it, were you me? Would it stop whining if to thee I sent it even now? It should not tease you by your chair or on the mat, or if it dare to climb your dizzy knee, or sometimes at your side to run. When you were willing, shall it come? Tell Carlo, he'll tell me. We'll go from Carlo, of course, her pup, to a spaniel mentioned in this poem. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've already worked through our set of introductory comments. I'm hopeful that you've as well worked through the preceding 235 poems. We just finished with 235, The Court is Far Away. Now, while some will call this an inferior offering by virtue of it beginning with the eclipse at midnight and ending with a bloody dog, we'll get to it, I think there's something else going on here. The scholar Wolfe has pointed out about this poem, Emily's determination, quote, determination to confront the full barrenness of human fate, end quote. That is to say, as a principal source of Emily's poetry. I think this poem has to be read as another theodicy, back to our introductory set of comments. That question of pain and suffering in the world. How do you deal with loss? Or, notice the first word of the poem is if. The possibility of loss. If, and by the way, notice all the italicized words in this poem. If he dissolve, then there is nothing more. Eclipse at midnight. It was dark before, sunset at Easter, blindness on the dawn, faint star of Bethlehem gone down. Would but some God inform him, or it be too late. Say that the pulse just lisps, the chariot's weight. Say that a little life for his is leaking red, his little spaniel. Tell him, will he heed? Now, this will he heed takes us back, of course, to poem 234 with I guess. The uncertainty often in a lot of Emily's poetry, and I think it is cautionary for us. We have to be careful to not read too much in with assurances and confidences into these poems. I mean, it's clear that Emily herself is full of a certain kind of uncertainty or doubt, and to that degree, we ourselves must be careful as we come in. This is one of the reasons why we call this series Chats with Emily, because if you're chatting, you're just kind of raising potential ideas that can be responded to. Notice all of the dark words here. Word choice really does matter. If, of course, we've seen this already, the possibility, and then she'll play it out. If he dissolve, and again, notice it's interesting, not dissolves. If he dissolve, then there is nothing more. Notice we have 4 dashes in the first line alone. It's a very halting poem, the dashes, and the use of the dashes have been obviously debated, and we've already talked about it quite a bit here in our conversations. But notice how it's a halting kind of like, almost as if, can we say it out loud? Almost as if there's sobbing going on, right? That is to say, I can barely even say out loud the possibility of what I'm talking about here. If we are talking about Sam Boyles and his departure, or the loss of Sam Boyles, possibly as some have argued an object of affection. If he dissolved, then there is nothing more. Eclipse at midnight. The word eclipse will come up in 7 poems of Emily's. Eclipse at midnight. It was dark before. And I think the key word here has to be the word nothing, which obviously would make Emily immediately. I think there's 2 Shakespeare plays that Emily is playing with here. She loved her Shakespeare. One is, of course, King Lear. You'll remember what he says to Cordelia, nothing comes from nothing. And we've given full lectures of that play at learnstrong.net. And then the second word here, dark, because it is dark, notice. It was dark before. In other words, just for a brief moment did I have any chance at light. And then, of course, from there to sunset at Easter, and all of a sudden notice that we have the disappearance in some ways of, maybe we would say, the first creator, and then, of course, of the Son, the Father and the Son. Sunset at Easter, blindness on the dawn, faint star of Bethlehem, gone down. Back to, of course, the word gone as the last word of 233. Would but, notice the construction from if to would but. Would but some God. Now, it's interesting that it's some God. And we've already commented on Emily's ambiguity about her theology. Notice here, it isn't God. It's some God. Almost as if she's speculating that God that she once believed in is now increasingly lost. So we're speaking about loss of him. Some have read this as loss of faith. Others have said, I think she's really concerned about the loss of somebody close, possibly as Sam Boyles. And now, would but some God inform him, that is to say, let the object of my affection know, or it be too late. Now we're back, of course, to poem 90 with that phrase, too late. Obviously, it dances with the phrase gone down. And you do get this sense of a certain type of almost frenetic, like, is it too late, is it too late, is it too late? Notice the word say now will come twice. Say, and then the dash, that the pulse just lisps. Notice we go from informed to lisps. The chariots wait. Now, of course, we'll hear about chariots and passing gates on our way and our death scenes in the death poems of Emily here. In other words, please tell him that it's very possible that I soon will die. The chariot to take me to the graveyard is waiting. Say, second say, that a little life, we're going to get two littles here. I already told you guys in 172 different poems. Emily loves this word little, emphasizing her own littleness. It may be ironic often when she does it, obviously. Say that a little life, and then it's for his. Notice, inform him. For his is leaking red. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, what is she talking about? Oh, she's talking about blood. She's bleeding. No, but now it's not so much she's bleeding, but his little spaniel is bleeding, right? And then one more time from say to tell. Tell him, from inform now to tell him. Will he. Now, this is a sentence unto itself. Notice the him has an exclamation point afterwards. Notice after gone down there's an exclamation point. And then there's this question, will he. Now, again, back to poem 186 with this little hound within the heart. And here it's a spaniel. And in my own way of reading this, I can't help but think that not only is King Lear, the play, standing behind some of this, nothing comes from nothing, and the way that maybe Cordelia has been spurned and is obviously at the end of the play concerned about her father. Notice the idea of spaniel as it relates to that famous set of lines in Midsummer Night's Dream 2:1. You'll remember this lines 188 to 244, when Helena will say to Demetrius those more than a little disturbing lines, right? I am your spaniel, and Demetrius, the more you beat me, I will fawn on you. Use me but as your spaniel, spurn me, strike me, neglect me, lose me, only give me leave, unworthy as I am, to follow you. I think there's that line, that set of lines, which are obviously, if they're not ironic and humorous, they're tragic beyond words, right, as she says it to Demetrius. I think her use of the word spaniel here will call up that potentiality given the subject of this poem. Well, what are we going to do with a poem like this at 2A? I think her argument is that loss is hard to accept. It's hard to deal with. It's hard to come to terms with the potentiality that someone you care about, can we call them a pal, is not around anymore. And how do you deal with that loss? Again, the question of theodicy. How do you deal with pain? How do you deal with suffering? At 2B, well, there are all the dark words, no question, and especially her choice of the word spaniel, I think, is significant. And I think a letter here can help us out. The scholar priest has pointed out that in letter 196, that Emily used the spaniel as an image of devotion in a letter of December of 1858. She wrote this actually to Mrs. Mary Boyles. No, it's not him, but her. Quote, "Since I have no flower to send you, I enclose my heart, a little one, sunburned, half broken sometimes, yet close as the spaniel to its friends." End quote. And I think that use of the word spaniel is a fascinating use of the word. There's all kinds of speculation that you can probably make about it as well. At 3A, well, I think there's a couple of poems here that come to mind immediately. When we get to poem 461, she'll say it this way. "A wife at daybreak I shall be, sunrise, hast thou a flag for me? At midnight I am but a maid, how short it takes to make a bride. Then midnight I have passed from thee unto the east in victory. Midnight, good night, I hear them call, the angels bustle in the hall. Softly my future climbs the stair, I fumble at my childhood's prayer. So soon to be a child no more, eternity, I'm coming, sir, Savior, I've seen the face before." Again, this uncertainty of what exactly happens next. When we get to one of our most famous poems, 1732, it will play like this. "My life closed twice before its close. It yet remains to see if immortality unveil a third event to me, so huge, so hopeless to conceive as these that twice befell. Parting is all we know of heaven, and all we need of hell." It is this parting, which of course takes us back to poem 71, that will be of significance, I think, here. And then obviously at 3A, I mentioned it, the two Shakespeare plays that stand behind, I think, this set of lines, namely Lear and Midsummer Night's Dream. Finally, at 3B, some will see this as a weaker offering. I actually don't. I think this is a poem where she's trying to capture the sense of loss, the dread, the concern. At 3B, to own a poem like this, what was a time when you had to deal with this kind of uncertainty or this kind of loss? And is it possible that knowing that Emily felt this way maybe helps some of you guys say it's okay to feel that way? Thank you.